You need to value yourself. That's one of the things that I think that doctors have a hard time doing. It's like because they've been in student mode their entire life, they've just been trying to work towards something. Then all of a sudden when they get something that's a lot more than that, they're immediately content. And then later on, the realization kind of comes like, this kind of sucks, but then it could be too late. It could be 20, 30 years, right? Because you're still paying off your debt. You're still working extra to pay off, to give, for your child's college fund, whatever it is. But it's like, why are you valuing yourself less when we're not talking about a different planet?
Right.
This is happening in the same country and in the same states and the same hospitals that we're working with, physicians in various places and across the country. So like, that question is like, or my question to you is, why do you think doctors undervalue themselves? And it could be, ignorance is one factor, or it could be some other psychological factors that you think doctors just don't tend to value themselves. Because I think that if you're not maximizing your dollar per hour earned,
right,
you're undervaluing yourself.
Oh, by all means.
Right? I mean, why?
I think the comfort of not having to deal with these other factors that they just don't realize that are not that bad. Like we talked about a little bit earlier. Like,
let's go into that.
SEP IRA, right?
How did you kind of set up your benefits and all that stuff? Because I mean, that's a big thing about docs. Like, oh my God, how am I going to do this? This is like rocket science.
I can answer all that in one word: accountant.
Accountant, yeah.
Do everything, and then you read a little bit.
So your accountant does like all your kind of
essentially,
retirement fund and all that stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. You probably have to open an account with some company like Northwest Mutual or something else, right?
Yeah.
And then they just basically.
I mean, just like any field, right? There's good and bad accountants too. So that's another world to kind of talk about, in some other future podcast or so. But essentially, your accountant gives you the idea. There's something called Google that someone I know tells me a lot. And you realize it's really not that difficult, but that initial dive into that world is
seems
very
a bit scary. Yeah.
And that's, I think, what creates, right? There's a saying, fear kills more dreams than, oh God, I just...
Point taken. That first line is what says it all.
Fear kills more dreams. How's that?
Yeah.
There's a little bit more to that sentence, but essentially that's what it comes down to. And I think that's exactly the world of full-time doc versus a locums doc is exactly that. Fear kills more dreams.
And fear comes from ignorance.
Exactly.
Right? It comes from not knowing. So if you don't know about a certain people or certain like culture, you'll be fearful of them.
Yeah.
Because when you first see them, they might look different. Same thing with docs. Like they fear the unknown. And generally that's human nature. Human nature fears the unknown, like you're saying.
And the funny thing is like, when's the last time I thought about my SEP IRA? I don't, because it's so easy. When's the last time I thought about my health insurance?
So it's not like an ongoing thing that you have to
Not at all.
Once you set it up, it's done.
It's done. Like I don't worry about it. My disability insurance, I don't think about it because it's not that big of a deal,
So you talk to your accountant, you got all that stuff taken care of.
Yeah, you get the basics from them. You delve into it on the internet a little bit.
The health insurance, was that also through your accountant, or how did you get that set up?
No, I mean, I know I need health insurance.
Yeah.
So I Googled it and I got health insurance.
You went to Google, which is a new technology that helps us gain information about things that we don't know about.
Yeah.
So on that point, health insurance for me, I just basically got on the marketplace. I just went to Capital Blue Cross. I think I had Athena or something like that before, but I went to Capital Blue Cross website, Google again, and I just signed up. Yeah. And I called them and said, hey, this is my situation. I have this many members and this how many people I want insured. And they sent me like an option, like, between like, is it like silver, bronze, silver, and gold or platinum type of plan, right? And then I choose specifically which kind of health plan that I want. Now and that's nationwide, and that was much better than the health insurance I had as an employee.
So that's the other part of it,
and it's tax deductible.
And it's tax deductible. You're right. Yep. Well, let me ask you this: how many hours does it take to pay that healthcare monthly plan off? Monthly. So how many hours do you have to work? Oh, you mean
for my clinical work to pay that monthly premium?
Yeah, because everyone's always scared, like, oh my God, my healthcare is going to be so expensive. It's going to be ridiculously expensive. I can't afford it. How many hours do you have to work to pay that monthly health insurance off?
3
hours. 3 hours per day or per shift, or 3 hours in total?
In a month. So if I work 3 hours in a locum shift, my health insurance is paid off. 3 hours, not 3 shifts, 3 hours within a shift. So if I'm working 130 hours, say 140 hours, the 3 hours that I'm, is just towards my health insurance.
Per month. And see, that's what I remember having this conversation with a friend of mine.
It's a very small percentage, right? Yeah. I mean, I don't know what that is. It's less than 5%.
Yeah, it's insignificant.
And the benefit, again, you're reducing your taxable income.
On top of that also.
So say it's $1,000 a month and it's 12 grand, right? If your taxable income's 500K, all of a sudden now it's down to like 482.
Right.
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 So, and then you basically keep doing add-ons to these things, which can bring it even below your income as a W-2 employee. So like you bring it down so low, right?
No, I mean, that's why I think a lot of people that I've met had that fear of cost of healthcare, and you realize it's not that bad. And that's again, why I wanted to make that point a little bit, emphasized, because it shows you it's irrelevant.
It's not.
And when's the last time you worried about your health insurance cost, or like even worried about your health insurance in general, right?
I have not thought.
It's on auto pay,
and it's such good.
It's on auto pay.
I have great coverage, basically. I mean, I can go anywhere in the country. It's not an HMO plan. It's what's the other one? PPO, whatever. I don't even know what the plan is, but it's great. Once I got it, I'm like, all right, I'm just going to keep it.
Right.
I just keep renewing it every year. So that's not it. So that's not an inhibitory factor. The benefits you talked about, you basically just went through your accountant, who's a good accountant, and they found benefits for you, and it was very straightforward, right? And you don't have to think about these things. Now they're on autopilot.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Just like an employee, those things are on autopilot. Yeah. You have to do a little bit of research in the beginning, a couple hours. I don't know, 3-4 hours maybe.
Right.
5 hours, 10 hours, whatever. I mean,
it's not even just not 10 hours.
I'm just saying, if you were to say 5 hours, for example.
No, I get your point.
And then you're done.
Yeah.
For the rest of your life, pretty much.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah, literally the rest of your life.
Well, as an employee, you wouldn't have to do that even from the get-go. So you save 5 hours being an employee by not having to work about your benefits, initially kind of figuring out how that's going to be. Over the course of your career, it's not that much.
Yeah.
It's not that big of a difference. Again, I think people just don't know. Because we know people, both men and women doctors, who do locums and travel for locums.
Well, because you can be home more, right? Those people see the bigger picture. It's like, yes, you're gone for 5 days, but now you're home for 25 days. As opposed to you're working 12, 15 shifts at home. And yes, you're home for 12, 15 of those shifts, but for a couple hours at a time. But you're also not present for those 12, 15 shifts on the other hand.
Right.
And then you only have extra 12 days off to hang out with them. So it's definitely much more doable. If you work less shifts, you have way more time at home.
You have to look at the big picture. Look at the big picture there. Like,
exactly.
you're gonna be gone from home for those. Say, I do about 10 to 12 to 14 shifts a month, just depending on the month. You're not home, but when I am home, I'm home.
Real quick before I forget on that note. So if you live in New York City and you work in New York City, you get New York City taxes.
Yeah.
You get New York City pay, which is less anyways compared to regular market value. So now imagine you're a locums guy or girl and you live in New York City. And you work in, I don't know, Florida, Georgia, Tennessee, California. Well, maybe California's not the best, but you get the point.
A high-paying job somewhere.
Higher paying job. Yeah. And now you get to come back to New York City, and you probably got paid double of what any other doc around you makes.
Right.
And you get to still live in that city that you want to live in. And now you're home for 18 days.
That's freedom thing, right? Where people can live in another country or a different zip code.
Yeah.
You can live basically anywhere you want.
Yeah.
And you can work less again. You can work a fair amount less, not just like one shift a month less, to make the same amount, right? So that's, I think, one of the massive advantages of the lifestyle that locums offers.
We should probably talk about the other end of it too, though, right? The stigma of locums, right?
Go on.
So locums traditionally used to be doctors that couldn't get jobs.
Who were kind of shitty docs.
Or older docs. Right?
Yeah.
And like any field, any line of work, you're going to have good people, mediocre people, and bad people. Historically, used to be just bad people that couldn't get any jobs.
Yeah.
Now, I think coming out where people are starting to realize that, like you said, they know their value, right? Like, why am I taking $3 for your $4, right? So
younger docs have a little bit more visibility, and
which is good.
They're smarter and they're more tech savvy. So now they're using these various resources to figure out, okay, well, how can I maximize my career from the get-go?
Right, because they've realized it's just a job, right? Unfortunately, it just comes down to being a job, all right? And so they've, like you said, they've realized that. But there are still bad apples, right?
Yeah, I mean, even employees.
Yeah.
I remember, and look, we work in places where there's employees, right?
Right.
And there's several employees at the various hospitals we've been in across the country that are, less subpar.
Right.
But they're there, and so, but I think that the tide has turned for locums, for sure.
I think so too. And that's what I was going to kind of go into, is you realize that these young docs have come to realize that they not only value themselves, and this is big in the young world nowadays, mental health.
The high suicide rate amongst professionals is amongst doctors. So mental health is important because clearly doctors are not taking care of their mental health,
right?
And they're offing themselves, right?
Right.
So again, I think that's actually a good thing. Whereas the older generation of docs, which I don't know if we're kind of in the middle, I guess.
Yeah.
About 10 years in our career.
Yeah.
Like we kind of generally didn't think of that even being a factor.
Yeah.
Right. It wasn't kind of like a decision-making thing.
Right. Well, I think the older generation valued work. We not just value work, we also value outside of work, which is our actual life.
Extracurriculars and the family, being with friends, traveling, just living life outside of the hospital, basically.
And I think the younger docs, they value personal life way more than anything else, which, to be honest, I commend them, you know?
Why
because
not?
Exactly. Because if your mental health is stabilized from not having to be restricted by the corporate world, then by all means, more power to you.
Yeah.